We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order because we do have a quorum. It is 6:22 p.m. Ms. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Emerson,
Here.
Alderman Ward,
Here.
Alderman Azier,
Where did they show?
There you go.
Alderman Hunt, Alderman Hunt,
You're muted, Frank.
Okay.
Now you're unmuted.
Thank you. It just took out by itself.
Now we've lost you, Teresa. Jennifer Baird.
Alderwoman Mims,
Excused for now.
Alderman Bill Van Buskirk,
Here.
Alderman Walters, Alderwoman Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Here.
Alderman Green,
Here.
and Alderman Myers,
Here.
and then Alderman Azier.
Jim Azier. He just was working just fine.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 5.
Yeah.
Miss Emerson's on there.
Yep. So we have everyone but
Seven.
Alderwoman Mims.
Right. The only thing is Azier and Mr. Walters can't hear us.
Right.
So we have a quorum of,
They can hear us, but they can't respond.
oh, no, I was told, he was telling me he couldn't hear me, so. Jim Azier, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
All right, just leave it alone.
Don't touch your button.
We've got 2 of you there, but we've got
It
2 of
bumped
you
me
there.
off by itself. I don't know why.
I don't either. Okay, so Greg Walters is the only one we can't seem to get communication with other than a picture. Okay, so we've got a quorum. All right. I'm going to call for the approval of the January 5th, 2021 Committee of the Whole Meeting Minutes. Do I hear a motion, Ms. Mary Jane Van Buskirk?
So move.
Second.
Second by who was that?
Frank.
Frank Hunt, you got second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll. Ms. Henry, you want to give it a try again? Nope. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Ms. Baird.
Alderwoman Mary Jane Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Alderman Hunt,
Yes.
Alderwoman Emerson,
Yes.
Alderman Ward,
Yes.
Alderman Azier,
Yes.
Alderman Bill Van Buskirk,
Yes.
Alderman Walters, you on there yet?
No.
Okay. Alderman Green
Yes.
and Alderman Myers.
Yes.
Thank
All right,
you.
Motion carries 8 and 1 we couldn't get it. And if you would, please make sure the notes show that Mr. Walters was present via the picture, and I think he can hear us from what somebody said.
You hear me?
He's not able to respond to us. Now Miss Mims is here also.
Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yeah, I can hear you now, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna go
Okay.
back and mute.
Okay, so anyway, so we just passed the meeting in the minutes for Jan 5th and 2021. And now we'll move on to the pavement assessment management program presented by Jose Leon, our Public Works Director. What do you have, good sir?
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. I'm going to pull up my screen here, and it's quite a bit of information. We used up a lot of time doing all that, so I'm going to hurry but not rush through this, hopefully. So we're here to talk tonight about our pavement and kind of our plans after, my evaluation of kind of where we are here in Raytown and what I believe and we believe are the best practices moving forward for us in terms of street maintenance. So whenever we're looking at our assets, and I know some of you have probably heard a lot of this before, but I'm just going to regurgitate it anyway because it's good to hear again. We're looking at, what do we have? What streets do we own? What is the condition of our assets, our streets? What tools can we use? And finally, how much funding do we have to do any sort of work? This is a look at, I guess I should ask, everybody can see my screen, right?
Mhm.
Okay. This is a look at what we own. In the red, you'll see our arterial streets in the city. And then we have collector streets in the blue. And then of course our residential streets in the yellow. Altogether, you can see we've kind of summed this up in miles for you all to see how many miles we have in Raytown. Quite a bit of street. So approximately 330 lane miles of pavement in Raytown. Arterial, we have 52 lane miles, collector 38 lane miles, and residential, we have the most, 240 lane miles. We did an evaluation of our streets with about $305 million is what the valuation is of our street network. And that's if we took about $350 a linear foot of new construction. If we were to just build our streets today, brand new, this is the value of them. And of course, as you all know, most of our streets are asphalt construction. So whenever you get into pavement management, there's a lot of good material out there. A lot of engineers, a lot of scientists have done a lot of studies on asphalt, concrete, streets in general. And really the resounding theme that you get out of this is keep good streets good. Keep your good streets good. That's where your focus should be. So that's kind of the theme that we're going with this evening, is keep good streets good. It's important to note that our street network isn't just pavement. It's not just asphalt and concrete. There's also a lot of other types of assets there, street signs, markings, striping, sidewalk, ADA ramps, driveways, approaches and for houses, storm gutters, signals and flashers, manholes that you see off the street or on the street. So there's a lot of other things that we have to take into consideration when we're talking about doing a pavement street maintenance. This is probably one of the most important slides that I'll show you this evening. This is the life of a new street. So as you can see, if we built a street new, brand new, fresh base, surface, everything, it's excellent, on year one. And the fall off of a street, particularly related to the weather that we deal with here in Raytown and Kansas City area, and the traffic that we deal with, depending on the street that it is, the quality of life drops off pretty quickly. In the first 10 years, you're looking at a 40% drop in that quality of life. So really, what one of our focuses is we want it to be going forward is around the 5, 7 year, 8 year mark at most. We're doing something to our streets, our good streets, to bring up that curve and prolong that deterioration over time, so that we can keep our streets, our good streets, good for as long as they can be. So this is an important note here. One other thing is that I want to point out is that if we start looking at very poor streets, failed, which we'll talk about here in a second, these lower condition streets, we're gonna spend $12 to $16 for rehabilitation here. versus the $2, $3, $4, et cetera, that we'd be spending up here. So we're spending, 4, 3, 4, 5 times the amount of dollars down here focusing on these streets than we would up here focusing on our good streets. This is going to make a little bit more sense when we go through this, hopefully. So, just simple math using that curve of life of a street. So if we on average touched our streets every 8 years to keep up the street maintenance, to keep the value up, or to keep up the funding and our contribution.
I got it. I'm hearing it now. Okay.
To keep up our funding and the pavement life, if we were to touch the roads every 8 years, we should be doing in Raytown about 41 lane miles a year. So that's a reminder, 330 lane miles. If you divide that by 8 years, 41.25 lane miles a year is what we should be doing. That's about 12% of our street network that we should be maintaining annually. One important note is that this should be a coordination between what we do in-house in street maintenance with our own staff and what we contract out. They should be complementing each other. So some more about what we know. In 2018, Stantec, they came in the city and they did a street condition survey for our streets. They provided a lot of good information. I know some of you were here when they did that. Basically, we know that our streets are bad. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and we also learned we need to find ways to stretch our dollars. That's really one of the most important points this evening is we've got to find ways to stretch the dollars that we have, because as we all know, we don't have a lot of dollars in street maintenance. So PCI stands for Pavement Condition Index. It's the acronym Pavement Condition Index, PCI. So when I say PCI tonight, that's what I'm talking about. It's a nationally used measurement for pavement condition. The range is 0 for the worst and 100 for the best. So PCIs that are greater than 70 generally are good to excellent condition. They have surface or joint problems that we can manage. And then PCIs between 70 and 55, that's a really critical range for us in our streets. This is where a lot of times we should be spending a lot of our focus here, because if we're not giving our streets attention, keep in mind that curve, that failure of the curve, if we're not giving our streets attention in this range, this will continue to dip down into this range, which is PCIs below 40. So then it becomes a failed pavement or failing pavement, and it's really expensive to repair. One important note to take out of this is that Raytown's pavement average for the average PCI is 42. So we're just above this area here. That's a really important number to note. When we talk about performance measurement, we're going to look at this as staff and see what our first goal is on raising this number. So specifically, when we talk about PCIs, this is from the 2018 Stantec survey. We had about 15 miles of street that are good pavement. We have about 25.5 miles that are fair. We have about 72 miles that are poor, and these are all color coded to match this map, by the way. And then we have a little over 34 miles of pavement that is failed. So we broke this into 4 conditions for you so you can see this map. Again, keeping in mind that our average PCI is 42. So again, we're right in here in the poor condition as a city. Just a quick summary of, what have we done the last, I think we went back to 2013 here. Where have we spent money on our streets? What did we do exactly? So in blue over here on the right, you'll see a map of the mill and overlay we've done between 2013 and 2020. And then you'll see in the red, the chip seal work that the city has done between 2013 and 2020. And this is the dollar amounts that we spent for those years. One thing to take note is that in 2018, it looks like the city did not have a street maintenance program because we spent that money for 83rd Street Bridge. And then there's a couple years in here where we really didn't do much work altogether. 2016, we did about $37,000 worth of concrete work. I'm not sure what that was exactly, but we went a couple years not really doing much. 2020, same thing. So the question is, what do we do? What is Jose talking about this evening? And really, the point I want to stress is we need to prioritize fair and good streets. That's where we're going to get the best bang for our buck. That's where we're going to really stretch our dollars. We need to get back to the basics in Raytown. And really what that means is doing more routine maintenance, which includes crack sealing, preventative maintenance, which is, surface treatments, crack, chip seals, micro surfacing. There's some other ones that we'll talk about this evening. Again, just a reminder, based on some simple math, we should be touching about a little over 20 miles annually, or 41.25 miles, lane miles. The other thing that we needed to do as a city is develop a financial plan for deferred maintenance and or reconstruction. Those are those poor streets that, it's not worth our dollars to invest in, or those failed streets that it's just going to take too much dollars for us to rebuild. So we've got to develop a financial plan. We can't completely ignore that. And then we also want to get into the practice of investigating subsurface and base thickness of our streets. And we'll talk about coring here in a second, that we want to start implementing here in Public Works. So just some basics of pavement management. You got your, routine maintenance, which extends life, your fog sealing, crack sealing, milling and patching, preventative maintenance. This is your chip sealing, micro surfacing, some thin overlays. You have your deferred maintenance, which I kind of spoke to earlier, which is, it would be too much work to do for us. At the moment, we can't afford to do any work. So we would probably let that, it's not ready for rehabilitation, which is more of a mill and overlay approach. Down here is and then your thick overlay. Then you also have your reconstruction, which removes your structural problems. That's your base issues, things like that. And then, it's full reconstruction of the road, full reconstruction of the street. So there's several different types of street maintenance. I'm going to talk about a couple that I fully believe in, that are proven strategies that the city is not foreign to, and hopefully some that we can bring into the city that are a little bit newer in the market. I think you all are familiar with crack seal. It's about $1.45 a pound. This is the black lines you see on the street that fill the cracks in the street. It's a protective measure, preventative measure. It's really important because the water getting into the pavement and into the subsurface is really what destroys our streets. Granite chip seal, micro surfacing, ultra thin bonded asphalt surface, which is an acronym of UBAS, is another good approach. You all familiar with mill and overlay, which is the more expensive approach. And one thing that's important is that these dollar per square yards or dollar per pound, things like that, they don't include striping and some of the other things that are included in some of these projects. The most important thing here is, we want to stretch our dollar by using a variety of maintenance strategies. And to illustrate that, what we did here is show you, just give you an example. This is our budget this year, $350,000 for contracted street maintenance. So if somebody were to say, well, Jose, why can't we just go mill and overlay everything? That makes people like that. Well, mill and overlay takes us to about 0.83 miles, so a little under a mile. And that's how much work we would be able to do in the city. UBAS, which is a little bit less expensive, a little bit more expensive than chip seal, less expensive than mill and overlay. It's about 1.5 miles. So we're doing about double the work. You can see that here on the right, 1.5 miles of work. And then if you use a method like chip seal, you're doing over 4 miles of work based on that budget. So it's really to the point that we're trying to make here with this illustration is, we can't be stuck on one method. We've got to use a variety of maintenance techniques to help impact more residents. Help us stretch the dollar. More residents will see the improvement over the city. So keeping good streets good. Again, just the point is, we want to complement each other. What we do in-house with our staff, like doing the base repairs and stuff, we want to make sure that they're doing base repairs and surface repairs on streets that we intend to invest more money in the future. So what they do in-house is gonna complement the work that we do on the contracted side. This is the base repair that our staff did in-house. This is crack sealing. This is actually a former community I worked in. We started crack sealing our own streets, which is one thing that we're going to evaluate here in Raytown. We're going to contract out crack sealing this year and next year, most likely. But ultimately, this is what we want to see right here. And I know you're thinking, well, man, that doesn't look very pretty. I don't want to walk outside or drive down the street and see that. What we call this is prep work, where our crews have gone in, or contractor has gone in, removed bad surface or bad base. This is actually a settled pavement right here where a pipe was put in and the pavement settled. So we went in and put in fresh surface, and then we crack sealed everything afterward. So why do we do that? We'll talk about that here in a second. Just a recap of our budget. We have $150,000 for crack seal budget. Again, it'll be contracted this year and next year. We're going to evaluate that function for in-house function in the future to see if our staff can do it. Hopefully one day we'll be fully staffed up, and I think it is something we can do, hopefully. This will be a priority operation for Raytown, whether it's contracted or performed in-house. This is a priority. Crack sealing is the bare minimum that we should be doing in terms of street maintenance in Raytown. In-house patching, looking at the first 2 inches of surface and base repairs, looking at those fair and good streets in the city, preparing those streets for preventative maintenance. That photo I just got done showing you, that's prep work. And then we have $350,000 for contracted street maintenance budget, preventative maintenance, contracted preventative maintenance. We'll look at contractors who can assist in patching and base repairs as needed. And if we need to do some mill and overlay, we'll do that where it makes sense. So chip seal, there's a lot of advantages and disadvantages. One of the advantages, it's one of the more low cost but effective measure of street maintenance. There's several disadvantages. I really don't have time to go all through these, but this is something that is very effective and it works. Many communities do it. So one of the things I wanted to illustrate for you is what does it look like? You guys have seen chip seal in the city before, right? What I would like to bring in is a new approach of chip seal. And that approach is, number one, we're going in, we're removing areas where their surface needs to be repaired or base patching that needs to be fixed. We're coming in afterward, we're crack sealing those areas, crack sealing the whole street. And then we bring in our contractor the following year to lay down the chip seal. So as you can see here in picture 6, we've already done all that prep work. It kind of looks like that picture I showed you earlier. This is what we want to see on this side. And then on this side, the contractor's already gone down one side of the street and put in the chip seal. This is really effective. This is an effective way of street maintenance with chip seal and micro surfacing and many other things. This is really what keeps our streets in good condition. UBAS is a thin bonded asphalt surface. It's a little bit more expensive than chip seal, but a lot less expensive than mill and overlay. It's really good for cul-de-sacs and areas that chip and micro surfacing isn't really ideal for. It's a textured surface, so what that means is they take off the first 5 1/2 inch of surface. We have to make sure that the base of that is really good condition, and then they lay on a brand new surface that's a thicker aggregate, a larger rock, if you will, with oil. It's a really good looking finished product, to say the least. It looks almost just it looks almost just like asphalt, new asphalt. So again, this is a cul-de-sac where they took off that 5/8 inch, and then they laid down this UBAS afterward. Mill and overlay, I'm not going to go through this very much. You all are very familiar with mill and overlay. You're removing the top 2 inches and you're putting down fresh new 2 inches of asphalt surface. It's more expensive. It does fall apart within that first 70 years if you're not doing good maintenance on it. Coming back and making sure that you're reinvesting dollars to protect that investment. Street coring, just real quick, we want to start coring our streets, and this will be in the fair and good areas as well. Probably some of the higher poor areas, because we want to understand what is our pavement, how thick is it really worth our dollar to put in new asphalt or chip seal or UBAS on those streets. As you can see here, this is actually the same street. This is on one side of the street, one area. It looks like about 7 inches, 8 inches thick street. Other side of the street, it's about 4 inches. So you learn a lot by coring your streets. You learn a whole lot by coring your streets. And again, this is one thing that we want to bring in to the city here in Public Works. So what this looks like is in 2021, we're going to start doing some prep work on our streets, focusing on those surface repairs, base repairs, crack sealing, getting our streets ready for what we're going to do in 2022, where we'll do some surface treatments, some preventative maintenance, UBAS, things like that. And then 2022, we're going to do some more prep work on some more streets, but we're also going to prep work for 2023, but we're also going to, like I said, cover up the work that we did in 2021 with the surface treatment. So it's an ongoing strategy. This does not end. This is something that we're just going to keep going. It's like a clock. We're just going to keep going through all of our streets until we touch them all one day. Just real quickly, what's next for the maintenance program? Like I said, keep good streets good. That's going to be our slogan in Public Works. We're going to keep good streets good, use proven street maintenance techniques. We're going to focus on 2021 street prep and 2022 surface treatments with the annual crack sealing. Again, looking at reconstruction, we know that we need more money to restart a reconstruction program in the city. So that'll take care of those poor and failed streets. And then here, I think throughout this year, really over the next 6 months, 4 to 6 months, I'm going to be working with staff to develop a good 3 to 5 year street maintenance program for the city. So we're able to show you all what that looks like using this philosophy. This is a map showing just some candidates that we're looking at for these dollars that we have this year for crack seal and surface repair, base repair. All these streets have been identified as mostly fair and good streets that we want to continue to protect its life and don't let them fall into that poor and failed category. So this is really the streets that we're looking at this year to do that with. And that's all I got, Mayor.
All right. You want to take that? There you go. Thank you so much. Anybody got any questions for Jose? By the way, Jose, great presentation. Mr. Azure. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Jim. You're still muted.
We're good?
There you go. What do you got?
Okay, Jose. So on the procedure that you showed us, how will that stand up to snow plows?
It actually stands up really well. I've been around a couple cities now where this has been done for several years. Actually, the chip or the surface, it'll come up, but you will not notice really the difference. It takes several years. One of the things I didn't really touch on is the life of some of these things. Once you do that prep work, the life extends. That chip seal, that microsurfacing, the UBAS, it really extends the life of those products. So I'm fully confident that we won't see much impact at all.
And last question, we have some streets that like haven't been touched. Not a lot of them that are in bad shape. Some of those have kind of a spider, the cracks. I mean, have so many cracks like a spider web that it's literally starting to fall apart.
Right.
Would you deal with those streets the same way? You can't really crack fill them,
Yeah, no, so I think one important thing is, and this is why I said, for our look this year is we're going to focus on our fair and good streets. Those streets you're talking about where there's so much of that alligator cracking is what we call that. We still got to look at a strategy, maybe like chip seal, to lay over it to keep those streets intact. I know that doesn't sound great and those residents won't love it when they first get it. But really what we don't want to do is having our streets fall apart completely where chunks of asphalt are missing and things like that, because that's what's going to happen if we leave them unprotected. But it's also not worth our time and dollar to go into those streets and say, okay, we're going to mill and overlay this street, or we're going to, do a bunch of patch repairing on the street, because that's just going to kill our budget if we start focusing on those really bad streets. So we're not going to ignore them, but they're not going to get the top dollar treatment unless that top dollar treatment includes a full reconstruction of that road in the future.
I know some cities, Kansas City being one of them, give the nicer neighborhoods greater consideration. Do we do that in Raytown or?
No, in fact, I think that's the great thing about the approach that I'm trying to implement here in Raytown is that we're solely focused on the PCI, the score of the street. That's all we're focused on. To me, it doesn't matter what neighborhood it's in, who lives on the street, anything like that. It's all a data-driven decision.
Thank you, Jose. I appreciate that.
Okay, we got 6 minutes. Mary Jane Van Buskirk.
I just
Bill, you're
want to say, Jose, I appreciate the presentation you gave, and it's very evident we got a lot of work ahead of us, and we need to get started today, not tomorrow. We need to get on this, and we need to get on it now. That's all I
Thank
got.
Bill Van Buskirk.
Thank you for the presentation, Jose. I can tell a lot of work went into this, and it's great that we have a plan. If we had more money, we could, our plans might be a little different, but over time, I think we're going to get our streets in a lot better condition. One question I had on the second page here, and this appears to be the main streets in the city that are in red. It says STP. What does STP stand for?
Yeah, and sorry, I got somebody moving something behind me. But STP, actually, that was a leftover from a map we had created. It's Surface Transportation Program. That's actually a federal program that Mark administers that we can go to and request funding for some of these projects. So that's also a program that we're going to look to and staff in the future to see if we can get federal funding dollars to do work on those roads.
Okay, so it would just be those streets that would be eligible?
That's right.
Okay, very good. Which is quite a few streets, and certainly some of our main streets. Okay, thank you.
And
Thank you, Mr.
just
Van Buskirk.
piggyback
Mr. Walters?
the SCP is what we use for 59th, 83rd, and 350. All
Very good.
three of those are STP projects.
Thank you.
Mr. Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jose, I appreciate your presentation. My neighborhood, I believe they used that very light aggregate seal on it over here off of 60th and Hunter. And it looked great when it went down. And the problem was some people came in and drove on it before it was finished. I mean, after it was finished, before it had time to set all the way. And where those people drove through, the street has degraded. And from my point of view, the contractor that we used on that should have to come in and fix that and repair it, just as if you hired somebody to fix your concrete driveway and they allowed somebody to walk across it when it was still wet. These are, and I've seen this all over the city and other cities too, where people actually watch it and maintain these things to make sure they happen, because Same thing happened on 59th Street when we first had the big roads breaking up over there, and they went in and fixed it. We ended up asphalting that twice. I wasn't on the board when that happened, but people were actually moving the barricades to get in there. So that's something I think that we can handle, which will keep us from having to do maintenance needlessly if we just do a little bit more care when we're getting it set in the first place. I was told that, oh, well, that the contractor said, oh, you won't be able to tell that in a year. Well, yes, you can, because where those cars went through and drove through this stuff before it was set, it is now back down to the old pavement, and it's degrading. It's at an accelerated rate.
Yeah, one thing I might say just real quickly is that's actually one of the disadvantages of microsurfacing. That's why a number of communities have moved away from it and gone toward chip seal alone and UBAS, is because the people driving over, keeping people off of it is tough when you lay it down.
Block it with vehicles.
Yeah, but people come out of driveways and all kinds of stuff. I saw some of that when that was happening.
Well,
Some of them were even during burnouts and stuff, just being stupid, so.
well, if we had it, I understand what you're saying, and that we can't fix stupidity, but we can make it painful for them to be stupid. So I think for the betterment of all, we try to find a way to make that work. Because the surface, when I first saw it, I thought, this is fantastic. And I understood it had a life of about 7 years. I think there's some sections which are probably going to be down to about 3.5 or 4 years at the most because of the vehicles that traveled on it when it was wet. So if we ever use that again, and I hope we do, because I think it's a quick and easy fix. I know that when you use the larger aggregate, people in the neighborhoods do not like it. It gets in their yards. It seems to fall apart. And sometimes in the past, and I hope we don't go down this road again, it appears that some people have tried to use, and not when you were here, Jose, but have tried to use the light aggregate seal as a way to repair a failed street. And all you're really doing is just taking a hole and lining it with something that keeps it a hole forever. It doesn't really fix it. So those are things that you know, if you got to hire somebody out there, just stand there, you know, and say, no, you're not coming through here. You know, that would be the way to go.
Mr. Leon, again, I would really appreciate it. I'll leave it, since you are the expert at it, I'll leave it to understand all the studying you did on it, and great presentation. And I'll trust you to decide what streets are the best to have that on personally. Because I know you know which ones, and I'm with Mr. Walters. I know people won't like some of the the chip and seal because they haven't liked it, but there's some that as has been explained to me, and I know there are some of those that's the only thing that's going to fix them and keep them in place so they don't crumble. So anyway, I appreciate your presentation and all that. So, all right, folks, we're almost right up against the clock here on our regular meeting. We got time for about one question, unless somebody, okay. All righty. Well, if you don't have anything else, Mr. Leon, I appreciate it very, very much.
Last thing I want to say, Mayor, just real quick. We will be putting some RFPs out for crack sealing and some of the street work that we need to do. That's when we'll be bringing this to the board to show you all the type of work that we're going to do and where exactly we plan to do it. So I just wanted to make that point clear that you will see this before it's actually done.
Yeah, and I just real quick too, before I ask for an adjournment, I have talked to people in the past, and including you and some others, about crack sealing, what that does. I didn't realize, and I'm sure a lot of people don't, just how much longer, by keeping the moisture and keeping the ice out of it, that it keeps that surface from breaking down even faster. So do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Don't move.
Who was that? Mary Jane? Second,
Yes, sir.
by who? Ms.
Me.
Mims?
Yep.
Or Miss Emerson? Okay, Miss Emerson, second. All right, let's do this by affirmation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? All right, we are adjourned. Please